Coming up on the DLLS Mavs pregame show, it's time for the Mavericks to bounce back as they take on the Utah Jazz. Who's in, who's out, the X factors as we preview the game. All that and more coming up on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. Here we go. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys covering your favorite team every single game night. You can find me on X at Kevin Gray Sports, at Bobby Carella, and of course, our Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato at Tim_Cato. He's going to be joining us coming up in the next segment live from the American Airlines Center. It is game night at the AAC. Mavericks at 1-1, looking to bounce back after a disappointing loss to the Phoenix Suns on Saturday night. Take on an 0-2 Utah Jazz team coming off a 41-point beatdown at the hands of the Golden State Warriors. Mavericks looking to get back in the win column tonight. Will look to do so in front of what should be a raucous AAC crowd tonight. Got a lot to get to in the next 30 minutes here in our pregame show. Who's in, who's out, the X factors, and the matchups to watch for in tonight's game. Bobby Carella, what's going on, man?
Kevin, I ate a late lunch. I voted. I'm ready for some dang basketball, dude.
You ready for some basketball?
I am locked in, all right? One team's trying to bounce back. Now, I don't mean to toot our own horn here at DLLS Sports, but I feel like we provided a fiery post-game show. The alarms went off. They had to bring a truck out here. Thanks to producer Tanner for saving us. We don't need to bounce back. The Mavs, they need to bounce back tonight, but we're going to bring the heat no matter what.
We are going to bring the heat, unlike how Miami did with Dwayne Wade's statue, but that's another conversation for another day. What we've got to talk about is how the Mavericks find a way to get a win tonight. Mavericks, of course, coming off that disappointing loss to the Phoenix Suns, 114-102, despite the fact that Luka Doncic had 40 points in that game. The only two other players in double figures, though, were, of course, Kyrie Irving with 22, Klay Thompson with 19. They combined for 81 of the 102 points, which means you got a combined 12 points from your other two starters in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. And I'll start there because you've got to get more production outside of the quote-unquote big three that the Mavericks have. And PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford have got to be able to provide a little bit more production taking on this Utah Jazz team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, PJ's really struggling from beyond the arc. He made the three, luckily, on that incredible Luka pass that went through kind of like Wemby's body. It kind of like video gamed through him.
That's right.
Luckily, PJ knocked that one down, but that's been just about the only shot he's made from beyond the arc this season. I think he made one in Phoenix. Teams aren't really leaving anybody open on the Mavs. Like, they're kind of staying home on shooters, and we'll talk about that more probably at a later date. But the precious few opportunities you do get to make a wide open shot, you have to take it with confidence, and more importantly, you have to knock it down. You know, it's not just PJ that's guilty of this too. Like, against Phoenix, Klay Thompson had a great game, but he had all day on a shot and took a dribble and missed it. He had all day on a shot and pump faked it for no reason, and then shot just play, guys. But that's part of the early part of the season. You know, it's a big element of what's going on. It's a bunch of dudes that haven't played together before. Some have, but some are kind of new. PJ hasn't played many games in Dallas. Let's be honest there. So it's a lot of guys trying to figure out, all right, where am I going to get my shots? When am I going to get the ball? When do I need to be ready to shoot? And where is Luka going to find me? So I think by this time next week, we probably won't be talking about it anymore. But right now, baby, we're talking about it.
We got to talk about it. And let us know how you're feeling in the chat as well about tonight's game between the Mavericks and the Jazz from Felipe. More production from the role players will be a positive direction. We'll definitely get to Quentin Grimes, Najee Marshall, and what they've got to be able to do, because that's part of what my X factor will be for tonight's game. I'm glad you brought that up, Felipe, because we're going to have to talk about that as well. On the flip side, Utah Jazz 0-2 to start the season. season. As we mentioned, coming off a 41-point loss to the Golden State Warriors, what was 127-86 on Friday night, where the Warriors made 20 3-pointers in the game. In fact, they went 20 of 50 from downtown. Buddy Hield went off that night for Golden State. Maybe that's a formula for a Mavericks team that can get up threes, obviously, with Luka Doncic, Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving. Maybe that's a formula that they can use tonight as well to be able to bomb away from the three-point line and really put the onus on Utah to really get out there and guard the shooters of the Mavericks tonight.
Yeah, you want to talk about a guy that has never been afraid to shoot in his entire life?
Ooh, Buddy
Let
Hield.
me show you Buddy Hield.
Yes.
You know, now the Warriors do a lot of movement stuff, a lot of freewheeling, freelancing on offense. The Mavs are trying to incorporate that into their offense this season. So, you know, I don't know if they'll be able to get quite to 50 3-point attempts tonight, or maybe 20 makes, but we'll see. I mean, they caught fire against the Spurs, particularly in that third quarter and early fourth. They never really got hot against Phoenix at all. You know, you just kept waiting for a couple shots to go in. Like, we're talking about how there's going to be like a lot of these ups and downs, right? You're going to have periods where they're going to shoot 90% from three. You're going to have entire games where they're going to shoot like 25, 30%. Hopefully tonight is not the latter, because Utah is a team that you should beat. Utah is a team that you need to beat, especially because in less than 24 hours, they are playing at Minnesota, Kevin.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a pretty dang tough one, too.
Yeah, not a game that if you're the Mavericks, you should be overlooking, knowing that you got a matchup with Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves tomorrow. The Mavericks, by the way, 11.5-point favorite tonight going into the game against the Utah Jazz. So if you're looking for that particular line, they're 11.5-point favorite for the Mavericks. They are over the Jazz. By the way, Lauri Markkanen, obviously going to be one of the stars to watch for Utah on the season, early season so far. 24 points per game, averaging nearly 9 rebounds per game. Defensively for Utah, Walker Kessler, the man in the middle for Utah, averaging nearly 12 boards and 3 blocks per game so far this year. A lot of length and size that Utah presents with Markkanen and particularly Kessler in the middle. How important is it going to be for the Mavericks to not only defend Lauri Markkanen on the defensive, but more so on the offensive end, find ways to make sure that they're finishing over a really good shot blocker and a guy in Walker Kessler today?
Markkanen has been really, really tough for the entire NBA, let's be honest, to guard, but especially for the Mavs. I mean, just over the years, he has had some. It's like every time he plays the Mavs, I believe every single shot he takes is going in, you know, and he feels really good. And that's no slight against Dallas. Just he's a really, really tough guy to match up against. He's very tall. He can get his shot off very quickly, high release point. So, like, length doesn't really. You have to be super tall to bother him, basically. You know, like a guy like PJ, who ordinarily would give players even as tall as Wemby troubles, he just can't get to Lowry's shot. So Dallas has to track him all over the floor. He is so adept at running off screens, the way that smaller players like Klay and even Steph do. Dallas has to be able to communicate on those. Are we switching those? Are we... am I trailing this guy and trying to block his shot? Or are we trying to beat him to the spot? Because then he's going to cut back door. He cuts a lot to the basket and gets a lot of dunks off cuts. Like, he's just really, really tough to guard. Fortunately for Dallas, the rest of Utah's offense isn't quite as like caught up and advanced and sort of multi-skilled as Lowry is. So if you can put the clamps on him, then you're going to have a pretty good time. I have some more numbers about Utah's offense that I'll get to in a second, but about the defensive end, Kessler is a really good shot blocker, but the Mavs had that like 18 dunk game against the Jazz last season. Granted, slightly different personnel, and their season was already going down the tubes at that point. Utah's a little more motivated tonight, but the Mavs have had success on the inside against Kessler and Utah before. The other thing, too, you would think a team with Kessler who's 7'2".
Yeah, on the 7 foot.
And Lowry's 7, and like, you know, John Collins gets a lot of minutes. They got some pretty big players on the team. Taylor Hendricks is their 3. He's like 6'9". You think that they would be a better rebounding team, but Golden State, they had 19 offensive rebounds.
Wow.
Against Utah the other night.
Okay.
That is a lot of offensive rebounds, and they turned that into a lot of second chances. Part of the reason they had 127 points against the Jazz. So, you know, again, though, that's Golden State stretching you out and running off screens and getting people to do a bunch of stuff that freaks them out. They don't really know what's going on. Like, if Dallas can put Utah in the mix master a little bit, then their size doesn't matter, because they're not going to be at the rim to block your shot, and they're not going to be at the rim to get a rebound. So let's move, let's attack, let's get things going. Yeah,
make sure that you're crashing the glass and giving yourself second chance opportunities, unlike what the Mavericks did against the Phoenix Suns in their loss on Saturday. I want to ask you a quick question real quick, because one of the things that we've noticed so far in the first couple of games, and I wonder if this is going to be a trend, and you mentioned a little bit different personnel based off of what the Mavericks did last year against Utah with a bazillion dunks that they had in that game. They're not playing really above the rim like we're accustomed to seeing from last year. Is that something that we want to see more from this team, or is it just because that the personnel has changed that we've got to get used to a little bit different style, how they attack and transition, and in the half court when it comes to trying to play a little bit more above the rim in that way?
A lot of it is the way teams are defending Dallas. I'll use the stat right now, Kevin.
Yeah, go ahead.
So last season, teams double-teamed Luka a lot. They blitzed him more than any other player in the NBA. So much more, in fact, that Luka was blitzed more times on the pick and roll last season than the second and third most blitzed players on the pick and roll combined. Like, we're talking about he was being double-teamed 10 times a game, 15 times a game, sometimes more than that. There were some teams that didn't double him at all, including the Indiana Pacers. They blitzed Luka 0 times last season on the pick and roll. To date,
Shout out to Rick Carlisle.
It's only been 2 games, but Luka has only been blitzed on a pick and roll 3 times this season.
Interesting.
In 2 games. Last season, he was averaging almost 10 times off double teams, 10 times being double team off screen per game. Now, whenever you're double teamed, you're playing, once Luka makes the pass, which he always does, double teams don't fool this guy, then you're playing 4-on-3. And then, I'm the big guy. I'm just going to go to the rim, and I'm going to do the big guy thing, or I'm a wing. I'm going to get an open 3. With teams staying home on shooters and generally just dropping in the pick and roll, there's really nowhere for Luka to go. Like, there's no space, and there's nowhere for the roll man to roll into. There's no open space. The big man's already at the rim, or teams are switching, and so there's no advantage to be gained. So what teams are doing now, instead of blitzing Luka to force him to pass, is they're daring him to be a scorer. And he had 40 against Phoenix and looked really good. We saw the Mavs open the floodgates against the Spurs, not in the half court, but with early offense and in transition, specifically transition threes. But like, your best looks probably for now, until you iron out all the kinks on offense and get used to all this new motion stuff that they're doing, your best, cleanest looks are going to come in transition, which requires you to get a stop.
Yeah.
And they just did not get enough stops against Phoenix. So get stops, get turnovers, get out and run, find the shooters, and knock down their shots.
Mavs tip off with the Jazz at 7:30. Coming up in our next segment, we'll talk with Tim Cato live from the American Airlines Center. Just a couple more notes on this matchup. The Mavericks won the season series last year, 3-1. The last time these two teams got together was back on March 25th at the AAC. Luka Doncic had a 29-point, 12-rebound, 13-assist triple-double that night in what was a 115-105 win over the Utah Jazz. Luka averaging in his career 27.3 points per game, 8 rebounds, and 7.7 assists per game in 16 career outings against the Utah Jazz. Mavericks, by the way, have won 8 of the last 10 meetings versus Utah, including 7 straight against Utah at the American Airlines Center. So if you're looking for some good mojo on how the Mavericks get after the Utah Jazz, particularly at the AAC, Mavericks have won 7 straight games against Utah at the American Airlines Center. By the way, tonight is the first of 3 meetings between the Mavericks and the Jazz this year, with tonight's game being the only one at the American Airlines Center this year. So if you're wanting to see the Utah Jazz, this is the only time you'll see them at the AAC. The other 2 matchups will be
Quick,
in Utah.
download the Game Time app.
That's right. Next year, you download that so you can watch the Mavericks take on the Utah Jazz. Again, tip-off at 7:30 p.m. Coming up here in our next segment, Tim Cato going to be joining us live from the American Airlines Center. His news and notes on what Jason Kidd had to say prior to the game and his thoughts. And plus, we'll get into Bobby's scouting report as well and what he's going to be watching when Mavericks to take on the Utah Jazz tonight. All that and more coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs pregame show. But before we get there, got to become a diehard here at DLLS Sports.
That's right, Kevin. So many cool people. In fact, all the coolest people that I know have become diehards. Just today, Eric has signed up. Jay, Ryan. How about the GOAT, Chuck Cooperstein?
Oh,
became
really?
a diehard earlier today.
Wow.
Shout out to Coop.
Shout out to Chuck. All right.
Shout out to Coop.
Let's go.
And what those fine people did is they went to alldlls.com/diehard, where right now we're running an introductory limited time offer to become a diehard. It costs about $4 a month. When you sign up, you get a free shirt. You get access, more importantly, to our entire paywalled website. All our written analysis, post-game stories from Tim and from me on Mavs, post-game stories from Clarence Hill and Joe Hoyt on the Cowboys. We got Sam Nestler on Stars, Jeff Wilson on the Rangers. So we're covering every pro team in town. We're also going to have Wings coverage soon, starting for the Wings next season. We're going to have FC Dallas coverage next season. We got some college coverage on the way. Like, we're cooking. We're cooking. So you're getting on the ground floor, folks. This is our 2-month anniversary of DLLS was just earlier this week. It
That's
was on,
right,
on
days
Saturday.
ago. Mm-hmm.
I celebrated by staying up till 1 a.m. to watch the Mavs lose to the Suns.
Same.
But we're going to get to stay up late with you on YouTube for free every single game this season. We're going to be bringing pre- and post-game shows and then shows during the day, during the week. But if you want all those extra bennies, if you want to join the Die Hard Discord, You want to get discounts on merch. You want to get discounts on events. You want to be able to ask Craig Ludwig if he knows how to reset his router. The only way you can do that is by becoming a diehard. So go to alldls.com/diehard today, please, and thank you.
And when you become a diehard member, show off your physical diehard card as well. Tag us on social media, and we'll shout you out as well. We know that you're part of the diehardian family here at DLLS Sports. Again, alldls.com/diehard. Become a diehard member today. 30 minutes away from tip-off at the American Airlines Center as the Mavericks take on the Utah Jazz. Mavericks 11.5-point favorites against Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, and the Utah Jazz. Joining us live from the American Airlines Center, you can find him on X at Tim_Cato. He's our Mavericks beat writer and reporter, covering all things for the Dallas Mavericks here on DLLS Mavs. He is Tim Cato. Tim, what's going on?
Hello, friends. How are you guys?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Doing well. I'm just hanging out here, and there's a press conference behind me a little bit ago. I think there's going to be one after the game. I was here for it. I can say a few things about it if you guys are curious.
I mean, that's what we brought you here for. We brought you here for all the notes and everything.
That's the only reason?
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, like we're obligated to bring you on. It wasn't even our choice.
That's not a very nice thing to say, Bobby Karalla.
Oh.
You'll get over it. You'll get over it. What did Jason Kidd have to say pregame on what this matchup's going to be like tonight between his Mavericks and the Utah Jazz?
So Maxey is out for this game, and he won't be traveling to Minnesota tomorrow. But for an injury in a hamstring, anytime you hear a hamstring, at least I immediately think of months or at least weeks. It doesn't seem to be that serious of an injury in the sense that this may be something that he's able to come back from as soon as next week or later in the week. It's also telling that he was listed as a questionable injury designation going into this game. If this was a more serious injury, they wouldn't really mess around with that. I mean, he would just be out. So that's some positive news, even if he won't be available against Utah tonight. The one thing that really stood out to me is once again Jason just being asked about this team and its chemistry. I believe specifically the question was addressed about the role players, and do the role players need to adjust to Luka, and what type of time does that take for players who have been in different systems to come in and really figure out how to fit next to somebody who is a very unique player to play with. And Jason Kidd said this very familiar thing that you guys, I know you've heard him here. I bet a lot of you guys listening will know. He said, get back to me around Christmas. Jason Kidd loves saying that.
I don't like that answer.
Christmas is the marker.
It's his consistent one.
I don't like that this year. I loved it last season. I did love it last year.
And that's where I was going to go with this, is that as much as we talk about, there's just the teams need to get off to a better start, how this should be the year that's different. What I see right now is that the process is going to be the same. That does not mean that the results have to be the same. But Jason Kidd is still speaking and preaching the same things about, take time and let people figure things out, let people grow, and let this team grow into what it is. And that still may be true, and the team could just be better because the team has better players on the roster. And in fact, if I had to guess, I think that's probably the most likely case scenario. But the process behind everything is still the same from Jason Kidd.
Quentin Grimes ever going to play again, Tim?
I don't know. I mean, maybe that was it. Maybe they saw 2 games and they went from trying to extend him to, just never trusting him again, Bobby.
It's the worst day of my life.
Well, the role players have got to be better. I mean, Mark Stein pointed it out the other night after the Suns game. I mean, Najee Marshall's got 4 points in the first 2 games as a Maverick. Quentin Grimes, while his point of attack defense has been pretty decent, he's not knocking the open shots down that he's got available to him. They've got to get some more punch from those 2 guys to give us more confidence moving forward that these 2 are going to be real contributors to this team. I know it's early on in this first couple of games, but we got to see some signs of life starting tonight against Utah, Tim, I would think, to give us that more confidence going forward here.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, these guys have not shown up. It's 6 combined points for Najee and Quentin Grimes.
Womp womp.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, as much as we talked, we spent the post-game show a couple of nights ago talking about how the defense that Phoenix was using and just the defenses that Dallas has seen in the first 2 games has been a defense that isn't going to let the role players, just automatically be super involved in the game. But good role players still find ways to make an impact and to make their presence felt. And it's time now, after a couple duds for both of those players, really the first 2 players off the bench along with the center, it's time for them to figure it out. It's time for them to make an impact. It doesn't matter what style of defense Utah is deploying against them. It doesn't matter if they're not sending hard doubles at Luka so they get to play 4-on-3 basketball the rest of the game. Like, you have to find a way. You have to take the opportunities that you get, and good role players create opportunities for themselves. Not every possession, but once or twice a quarter. That's not too much to ask, and I think that's all Dallas is asking out of these players. And as much as they're going to be given time to figure this out, they're going to be given patience. It would also be good if they just kind of started figuring it out right now, and we saw it in tonight's game.
Yeah, because really in the West, you don't have the luxury of – I know you want to exercise the patience, incorporating a few new guys, but the West is so tough and so deep this year. You may not have that luxury to have this feeling out process that you've had over the last couple of years. Hopefully the result may be the same, but at the same time, it's going to be a little bit more difficult this year when it comes to trying to figure some things out, especially when you're dealing with these teams in the West. Real quick on the injury report for the Jazz, Isaiah Collier, he's out with a right hamstring strain. Drew Eubanks is out with an illness, so both of those players are out for the Utah Jazz tonight on their side. Everyone else is good to go. Of course, Dante Exum out for the Mavericks with his right wrist surgery. Max Kleber, as Tim mentioned, out with the right hamstring strain. So your update there when it comes to the injury report.
So no big off the bench. I mean, John Collins, obviously, who's like Mavs Hall of Famer.
Right.
But Eubanks is their backup 5, I think. So, I mean, unless they're going to play somebody. I mean, that's a big reason why they gave up almost 20 offensive rebounds to the Warriors. So attack the glass, attack the rim, attack. Good God, you're going to get sick of hearing me say that.
I know what you meant, Bobby, but you just said John Collins is a Mavs Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he is a
A Hall of Famer when he plays the Mavs. Yeah.
No. He belongs. His jersey belongs on the rafters at American Airlines Center because he has had so many good games here. Like, it's him and Julius Randle. They are Hall of Famers for this organization.
Or Chimezie Metu.
No, hate that guy. I hate that guy.
I know, that's why I brought it up. How about you? I can't stand him. GM Ben's
proposing they take Dirk's jersey down.
No, that is not. I don't know.
No.
Just because we said that you're not the Dirk Nowitzki of journalism doesn't mean you got to come after Bobby when it comes to his takes on particular players who have success against the Dallas Mavericks. By the way, GM Ben says, quote, Drew Eubanks got the Rico Dowdle flu. Relax, Ben. Relax. Okay.
So Paolo Banchero has 37 points at halftime tonight.
Excuse me?
Sorry,
that's a random help. Paolo Banchero's got 37 points.
And this just in, Daniel Gafford is your starting 5 once again for the Mavs.
Okay, so there it is. Your starting 5
How
will
does that
include.
make y'all feel?
I'm over it. Point blank. I mean, like, I get what we're trying with the. Actually, no, I don't. I'm lying. I don't get it.
We're all going to be dead soon, and none of y'all are invited to my funeral.
Yeah. I what?
Joe Mazzulla said that.
Oh, jeez.
Those aren't my words.
That's psychopath.
Can I tell you about the Jazz real quick?
Please.
All right. So I got a couple stats. Introduce you to some of these Jazz players. So Utah is very young. They're a very, very young team. They got some familiar names you've seen around for a while, like Jordan Clarkson and Patty Mills. But for the most part, this is a young team. Keontae George, 21. Taylor Hendricks, 21. Walker Kessler, 23. Cody Williams, 20. Bryce Sensabaugh, 21. Colin Sexton somehow is still only 26. I think that's a lie.
Jeez.
But
Wait,
he's been in the league for 10 years.
Yeah, he's been
right.
He's been around for at least my whole life. I've known who Colin Sexton was since I was in grade school.
It feels like Jason Tatum because Jason Tatum's only 26 and he's been around for.
Are you serious?
Jason Tatum's only 26.
God, that sucks. So, what do you need to do in order to be good on offense? Well, I'm not trying to make any music puns, but the Jazz need to be sharp. If you see what I mean.
Wow.
Be sharp is also C.
Bobby, are you proud of those?
Yeah,
the B sharper wasn't bad, actually. The B sharper wasn't bad.
So if you're looking for a major impact player
or a minor Kendrick.
Well, he's almost a minor because he's only 21. Start with Louisville High School legend Keontae George. Now, Utah, he's running point guard for Utah this year. The Jazz average 19.5 assists per game, and they average 19.5 turnovers per game. That is a 1-to-1 assisted turnover ratio, which is really, 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 really bad. Last season, Keontae he turned it over at least 3 times in 3 games against Dallas, including a 6 turnover game in this building. Dallas only forced 11 turnovers against the Suns on Saturday. They lost that game. They forced 19 against the Spurs last Thursday, and they won that game. So make this mistake-prone team make mistakes. Put pressure on the ball. I'm looking at you, Quentin Grimes. Looking at you, Najee Marshall. I'm looking at you, hopefully Kyrie and Luka, lurking the passing lanes, making plays, and all that stuff. So that's key number 1. Force the dang ball out of the dang guy's hands and get on the dang fast break. Now, Utah's also not shooting well, all right? They are a flat team.
Put Thomas's comment on the chat real quick. He beat you to that one already. Let's hope the Jazz are flat. Yeah, he beat you to that one. So you're a little late. You're a little late on that.
There you go.
They're picking up what you're putting down right
That's
now.
right. That's right.
Let's hope the Dallas offense doesn't look like an arpeggio.
Oh my God.
Really, Tim? Oh, come on, man.
You just want to make this really bad?
These are all really good, first off.
His are mostly good. What you just tried to do was a lot.
Yeah, these are all really good. You're really bad. You need to be pianissimo.
You know what an arpeggio is?
No, you need to be pianissimo for the next minute and a half and let me take over the show. I do know what an arpeggio is.
Woo!
All right. First off, I know what a crescendo is, and I'm going to decrescendo your ass.
I know, that's what I'm doing.
Whoa! Fight!
Tanner.
Fight!
No. Lauri Markkanen is the only player on the Jazz team, the whole team, that's shooting better than 33% from 3 to start the season. Now, small sample size, yada, 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 but literally all of them are struggling from deep. From the floor, Utah is just 39% this season. But they shot 45 free throws in their season opener against Memphis. 45.
Okay, wait. That's because fouled out in 15 minutes.
I can't even count that high.
Yeah.
I cannot even count that high. We just saw
45?
a free throw marathon on Saturday night. That game took 6 hours. So from a win standpoint, don't foul. From a aesthetic standpoint, don't foul.
Don't do that.
Just don't foul. Force turnovers. And turnovers require gambling, but just be smart. Just be sharp. Tim.
Or aggressive. Be aggressive. From Screw41, no Jazz Gortman puns. Well, he's probably not going to play, so.
Well, he will whenever
Jazz
the Mavs are up
Gortman
40.
is not active tonight. That was
What? I'm going
he's not
home.
active.
Oh, so sorry. He's not active.
Injured, he's
so-
just not active.
There we go. You guys done fighting? You guys good? You guys can kiss and
Oh,
make up?
I loved him.
It
Okay.
does say that Brandon Williams is slightly higher in the order of if you need an emergency guard off the bench, this is the guy you're going to play. You're allowed 15 players to be active. They have 3 two-way spots because 2 players are injured right now. 2 two-way players get added to that 15-man active roster. Gortman, not Brandon Williams, is the guy not active. But again, this is a very small thing.
This is Jazz
Neither player
erasure.
will
I will
play.
not stand for it.
It is kind of weird that Jazz.
Are we
Gortman doesn't
muting
get
Jazz Gortman is what
to
we're
at
doing?
least be
See?
active against the Utah Jazz.
It's unfair. I'm filing a complaint.
There's a
All
lot
right.
that's
Adam
unfair in
Silver,
life.
fix this.
Well, no, actually, you can don't
Fix
got
the
a game
fouls
tonight.
and fix the roster situation.
You got other things to worry about, like why WNBA coaches are flying away like flies at this particular point. But
Where are they going?
Or why the Utah basketball franchise is named the Jazz.
It's an
That
outrage.
to me should be his number one issue. I don't understand why he doesn't wake up every morning trying to come up with solutions to this.
Literally.
Well, I mean, he can't move the team back to New Orleans. That's not a thing anymore. They got a team again. So
Make me commissioner. That's day one.
That's what you would do day one if you were
That's
commissioner.
day one.
You got your priorities are way
Gonna
off.
call them the Utah Mountains.
Bye, Tim. We'll talk to you after the game. Thank you so much for your reporting. Yeah, it was time for you to go. It was time for you to get ready for the game. I'm kicking you off. He does look surprised. Love you,
Whatever.
Tim.
I didn't
Bye,
want to
Tim.
talk to
Have a-
y'all anyway. Bye.
I guess
Have it. Oh,
there he goes. Our Mavericks. our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. He's got to get ready for the game. We got to get ready to get out of here because it's game time between the Mavericks and the Utah Jazz. Your
Game
Mavericks
time?
it's not an ad read time.
Oh.
Your Mavericks are 1-1. Jazz 0-2. Mavs 11.5-point favorite. Need to take care of business to bounce back. We'll be back here 15 minutes after the buzzer tonight between the Mavericks and the Jazz at the American Airlines Center. Tim Cato, Mark Stein, both will be on the show with us as well for our DLLS Mavs postgame show. So make sure you come back again 15 minutes after the final buzzer tonight between the Mavericks and the Utah Jazz. Looking forward to seeing how the Mavericks get it done tonight. For Tim Cato at the AAC, our Mavericks analyst Bobby Carell, I'm Kevin Gray. Mavericks Jazz tonight, 7:30 at the American Airlines Center. We'll see you 15 minutes after the final buzzer here on DLLS Mavs on DLLS Sports. Y'all be good.
Bust out the trumpets.
Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.